Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. We see it every day. Black people who have done nothing wrong, who try to buy something at a store, usually because it's convenient to them, and they become the target of racial harassment and discrimination. But in too many cases, you got black folks who are subsidizing the racists. The root of this particular disease is what Dr. Claude Anderson called inappropriate behavior. There are many groups who have bootstrapped their own economies off of black customers, and then they weaponize the money that these black customers gave them in order to attack the very black community who patronize them. This is a reality. The politicians refuse to admit to it, the media refuses to talk about it, but too many black people refuse to stop doing it. Because were it not for black customers, these anti-black racists would have no customers at all. Now, why do so many black people keep engaging in such inappropriate behavior? It's because too many of us have taken on making excuses for the inexcusable. We resort to one of two talking points. Either we claim that such and such racist has lower prices, or we try to tell ourselves that their goods, whatever they are of higher quality. Neither claim is true. The reality is there's too many black people who practice self-hate. And when you decide that you're going to put money into the pockets of people who hate you, that is an expression and manifestation of self-hatred. Full stop. We have to take a zero-tolerance policy when it comes to anti-black racism from anyone who's calling themselves trying to do business with us. The first rule of any business is reciprocation. You only do business with others to the exact same extent that they do business with you. When someone does a lot of business with you, then you can do a lot of business with them. If someone only does moderate business with you, then you only do moderate business with them. But if someone does no business with you at all, then you're a fool if you do business with them. This is where practically all other groups fall when it comes to us. You want to teach people that anti-black racism is some sort of victimless crime? Go ahead and keep rewarding them with your money whenever they do stuff against you, or for any reason at all. People should have to earn access to your money. And when it comes to people and groups who have a proven track record of anti-black racism, that proof doesn't simply take the form of whether or not they pretend to have a paste-on smile when you walk in the door. They got to do a lot more than that. That happens to be a subject that just irks me no end. But it's not exactly the purpose of this morning's briefing. This morning's briefing, we're going to get to an example of discrimination gone wrong, but not for the reasons that the white media would lead you to think. Back in June of 2020, two white friends, Amanda Mills and Angela Smith, planned a joint family camping trip to Lazy Grove Campground in Virginia. Both of these two white women have families, but the difference is that Angela Smith's husband is black. Together, they have a biracial son. Angela Smith accepted her friend's invitation, and Angela and her family moved into a camper next to the Mills family. Angela Mills, however, got a phone call from the owner of the campground, a woman named Regina Turner. Turner told Mills, "You didn't tell me that your friend's husband is black." She went on to say, "Had I known, I wouldn't have rented that lot to them. I saw the sun, but I figured everyone makes a mistake." Gee, kind of reminds me of Nuri Martinez and those racist Latino LA City Council members now, doesn't it? According to court documents, Turner told another tenant on the campground that she wanted to wait until the Mills lease ended instead of moving forward with an immediate eviction. Quote, "I can't make the move now because if I give both of them moving notices now, they could take my park from me. I'm smart, you know, and I've got to use my head." As it was, Turner carried out her threat, and both of the families were forced to leave the campground when they were pushed out in August of 2020 after Turner refused to renew their lease. Ms. Smith claims that they had never experienced this before. Keep in mind, they live in Virginia, which is one of the most backward and racist states in the U.S., but presumably with a straight face, this woman actually said, never anything like this. We have never had anyone say anything or not even so much as a look or a stare. Nothing. I just couldn't believe it. Like, you hear so many stories of racism and things being said against other nationalities, and you always hear about that. But then there was still a part of me that I was just dumbfounded that someone could be so blatant and unapologetic about it and see absolutely no wrong with it. Now, assuming she wasn't doing this as white woman's tears, the question becomes, how could she not have experienced this before? Okay, maybe she hadn't caught the perpetrators in the act, but she's a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman, so when she says, "We have never had anything like this happen," what she's really saying is she never had anything like this happen to her. And she never noticed how racist her white neighbors and relatives and complete strangers were before now. The Virginia Attorney General's Office and the Virginia Fair Housing Board filed a civil suit against Turner on 1 count of refusing to rent and 2 counts of discrimination. The suit resulted in the families being rewarded $100,000 each for their losses. By the way, I want you to keep that part about 2 counts of discrimination in mind. We'll be coming back to that. The jury also awarded an additional $550,000 in punitive damages. The state attorney general was patting himself on the back, claiming the $750,000 verdict more than triples the state's former largest fair housing victory, which was a $200,000 judgment in a 2011 sexual harassment case. Now, since when is sexual harassment in housing more severe or widespread than racial discrimination? The only way that a sexual harassment suit is the largest fair housing judgment on record is if the authorities are intentionally refusing to pursue racial discrimination cases, and even when circumstances force them to have to pursue a suit, they actually decide that they're going to lowball whatever the punitive damages are. The reality is this was more about reinforcing white privilege than anything else. We'll come to that in a moment. Turner's lawyer is hoping that they can get the verdict set aside, which means they're hoping that some white judge will get on code for them. We'll see. But this case is noteworthy, even though it was just a laughably blatant act of anti-black discrimination. The perpetrator in this case admitted to her crime. It doesn't get more cut and dry than that. And it tells you that this Turner woman has been getting away with this for a long time. Her behavior is surely no surprise to the local government there, and probably beyond that. That's why she had no problem calling up a customer and telling them all that stuff. She didn't fear any reprisals for making her confession because she knows the good old boys are on her side. And she's right. Now, of course, the entire reason that this lawsuit even happened was because of the husband, a black man. He was the reason that this all happened. He was the one being discriminated against. And while it is good that this black customer got a jury verdict in his favor, let's understand something. It was his white wife and her friends that the state was thinking about. That's just a fact. He was the one who was actually discriminated against, but these people, they just so happen to have their names on the paperwork, so let's go ahead and lump them in there too. Now, people like Ben Shapiro tell us that these kind of things don't happen anymore. There's no racial discrimination. People are judged by their character and not their skin color, and that if black people would just stop talking about racism so much, then we wouldn't see it. Now, when is someone from the Democratic Party or the white left going to tell these inbreds like Shapiro that if they just stopped complaining about made-up things like reverse discrimination or anti-Semitism so much, then they wouldn't notice it? Nobody tells these white supremacists to grow up or shut up, which is why they continue to act up. This goes to show that the only racism is anti-black racism. This heifer Turner, she's like all the others. She knows that what she's doing is wrong and illegal, and she thinks she's clever in how she's doing her dirt. Listen to what she herself said. If I give both of them moving notices now, they could take my park from me. I've got to use my head. She thought this through. She knew what she was doing was wrong and illegal, and she's surely done this before. This is the first time she's pulled a stunt like this. This is just the first time that there were some white people willing to corroborate the discrimination claim, because that's what this is really about. This is a victory for white witnesses in a civil lawsuit. Let's not fool ourselves here. That's the only reason the state even got involved, and the only reason that they're pretending to be glad with the outcome. You got a Republican attorney general, by the way, who was the guy crowing about this. It was because both families were on a joint trip together, but the only black people involved was the husband and maybe the biracial child. The racist Regina character, she wasn't trying to discriminate against that white couple. But since they were all camping together with this black man, well, she had to include them too. They weren't the ones being discriminated against, though. They just made the mistake of having their name on the paperwork with this black man. And yet they too were given some money for racial discrimination. Reminds you of how affirmative action and so-called DEI and these other alleged racial equality laws and programs have worked, doesn't it? And notice that nobody's calling this particular verdict controversial. That the state decided to include a white couple in a discrimination lawsuit against a black man. As Neely Fuller said, white supremacy believes in taking both sides of the argument. And no, I don't believe for even a nanosecond that that Republican Attorney General is sincere about, we want to make sure Virginia's for everyone the hell they do. Far as he was concerned, he rationalized what he was doing because there were some white people who were temporarily inconvenienced by it. And this Attorney General of Virginia, this Jason Miyares, however the hell you pronounce it, guy, he himself has a case against him right now because of the fact that a few years ago he was helping to push those 2020 election hoax fraud things. He was claiming that election workers were stealing the election and such. This guy was involved in that. So this is hardly somebody who's on the side of the angels. He is a dyed-in-the-wool MAGA lunatic who thinks the 2020 election was somehow fraudulent. But this is the guy who's bragging about himself and how he was able to bring that lawsuit against the Turner woman to a successful conclusion. It just goes to show, whenever you got all these Democrats sitting here talking about we can't bring hate crimes cases because you harmed a black person, we can't do this, can't do that, it's not that they can't, it's that they don't want to. The Republicans are showing you what happens when the bar is on the ground, but apparently too many Democrats take that as a personal challenge to see if they can go lower. And tragically, too many black people are perfectly willing to accept that when every other group knows not to. Now, if a Republican Attorney General of a state is willing to do a self-serving stunt like this, then the Democrats have absolutely no excuse for not going ham for any claim of anti-black discrimination. See, whenever they say that they're going to be different than Trump, as they're trying to say on TV right now, all that means is they're not going to be blatantly racist. Their rhetoric will be different, but that's about it. But when they refuse to take on and fight the white right, they are allowing every single anti-black law, every anti-black policy, and every anti-black act of hostility to go unanswered, which is the Democrats conceding the entire society to the white right. I don't demand merely that they give lip service, I want them in the enemy's face, and if they're not, then that makes them part and parcel with the enemy. Democrats should be the ones out there constantly saying that anti-black racism is real and that it must be fought and that they're going to fight it. They should be specifically spelling out what laws the Republicans have passed that they're going to overturn and what states they're going to withhold federal funding from. Make the bastards pay the highest price possible for anti-black racism. That's what Democrats should be saying and should be doing, but they're not. In other words, Democrats should be doing for black Americans what they've been doing for Israelis who aren't even citizens. They should do what they did for Asians, even though it was black people who were the vast majority of hate crimes victims during the Stop Asian Hate hysteria, and remain the largest victims of hate crimes to the present. Until the Democrats do that, then you're kidding yourself if you claim that they're trying to change things. They refuse to even admit that there's a problem that has to be changed. While I don't have a problem with the Republican Attorney General bringing that suit, even though I think the numbers were greatly lowballed, the reality is if this is what Republicans are doing during a culture war with the orange man in office, then Democrats have absolutely no excuse whatsoever for not declaring all-out open hyper-aggressive war against the white right and their anti-black racism. Every single Democrat who's a state attorney general, as well as their U.S. attorney counterparts, should be out there constantly bringing up these suits. In a day and age when they allow trash like Ed Blum to file nuisance suits, and they've decided that the entire judiciary needs to become an auxiliary of the Federalist Society, this is the reason why black people have no reason getting all hot and bothered about Democrats saying, you gotta help us get the orange man under control next year. I need to know what Democrats are going to do for us. This society has bent over backwards and twisted itself into knots to make sure that everybody else is able to leapfrog over black people. Our economic and political and social position in this society is not the result of any failing on our part. It is deliberately engineered into this society, and you see how it works. This society deliberately and intentionally empowers anti-black racists specifically. And no, I don't want to hear any empty rhetoric from the Democrats about how evil and wrong the orange man is. We know that he's evil and wrong. The problem happens to be that Democrats have allowed the Republicans to go on a 50-year binge where they get to push all of this anti-black garbage, and the Democrats don't say boo about it, but they tell black folks they're going to be protecting us. Protecting us from what? There's been no protection. Trump is doing all this damage to America. Okay, and what are the Democrats going to do to repair it and reinforce it and to punish them for it? They're not talking about that. So what that means is they're actually planning more of the same. When a Republican attorney general in one of the most backward states in America brings a racial discrimination lawsuit that is primarily about a black man, but tangentially some white folks too were incidentally included, then the Democrats have no excuse at all for not going completely and thoroughly on a full war footing against these anti-black racists. And so long as they refuse to do so, they have no leg to stand on when they claim to be any better than the Republicans. And they certainly have no business lecturing us when we tell them that we are the ones who aren't happy campers. good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Jacques Hargett, Mark Anderson, Miss Debbie, David Green, and Heru the Duke. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.